Blackwater Lake has always been off-limits after dark, but in 1987, 7 friends broke that rule and were never seen again. I still remember the first time I heard about the class of '87. It was my 3rd week working at the Maple Hollow Gazette when my editor dropped a dusty file box on my desk with a thud that sent a small cloud of particles dancing in the afternoon sunlight. "Anniversary piece," he said flatly. 25 years this June. Inside was everything the paper had ever printed about the disappearance of 7 St. Helena High seniors on their prom night. Photos of smiling teenagers in tuxedos and pastel dresses. Police statements that said nothing. A town that stopped looking far too quickly. When I asked why the file felt incomplete, my editor just shrugged. "Because it is," he said, avoiding my eyes. "Everyone in Maple Hollow knows you don't dig too deep on this one." I didn't understand then. I do now. Because 3 days ago, a yearbook surfaced from that same missing class, and what I found inside changes everything we thought we knew about that night, about this town, about what happens when you ignore the warnings that were there all along. Tonight, I'm publishing what the town of Maple Hollow has tried to bury for 25 years. The evidence that was always there. The pattern no one wanted to see. This isn't just about 7 kids who vanished after a school dance. This is about what happens when an entire community chooses silence over truth. And it begins with a message scrawled in desperate handwriting across a yearbook's back page. We shouldn't have gone to the lake. June 5th, 1987 was perfect for prom night. The kind of early summer evening that feels limitless. Warm enough for the girls' bare shoulders in their formal dresses, cool enough that the boys didn't sweat through their rented tuxedos. St. Helena High School's gymnasium had been transformed. Gold and white streamers hung from the basketball hoops. Christmas lights wrapped around the bleachers. A disco ball, borrowed from the roller rink in the next town over, sent fragments of light spinning across walls normally lined with championship banners. The theme was Forever Young. Bruce Springsteen was big that year. The kids voted on it. At 10:47 p.m., the lights flickered. The music, Whitney Houston's I Wanna Dance with Somebody, warped and stopped. The gymnasium went dark for exactly 30 seconds. "Just a breaker," the principal told the students when the power returned. "Old building, you know how it is." By midnight, the dance had ended. Parents arrived in a parade of headlights to collect their children. The parking lot slowly emptied, except for 3 cars that remained until morning: Jeremy Whitfield's blue Mustang, Ann Carter's white Volkswagen Rabbit, and Michael Denton's red Pontiac Firebird. 7 students never made it home: Jeremy Whitfield, Ann Carter, Michael Denton, Christina Lopez, David Reese, Melissa Harmon, and Thomas E. Fletcher. What happened between 10:47 p.m. and midnight? Where did 7 teenagers go, leaving their cars behind, their personal belongings untouched? The official investigation concluded they must have left voluntarily with someone else. A spontaneous trip after prom. Teenagers being reckless. They'd turn up, they never did. No bodies, no evidence of violence, no significant leads pursued after the first month. Just 7 empty bedrooms in 7 grieving homes. And a corsage box found in the parking lot torn open, the flower inside blackened as if burned. They told me to clear everything out. Anything left behind would go with the building. The condemned wing had been closed since 1988, following water damage from persistent flooding issues. A chain-link fence surrounded it, plastered with faded, no-entry signs. Inside, classrooms remained frozen in time. Desks arranged in rows, chalkboards with final messages still visible through a layer of dust. I found it in locker 237, wedged in the back like someone had hidden it there. The yearbook was standard issue, maroon cover, gold embossed letters reading St. Helena High School 1987. But when Eddie flipped through it that day, something caught his eye. Along the inner spine, nearly invisible unless you knew to look for it, ran a series of handwritten notes. And on the back cover, in what forensic analysis would later confirm was dried blood, were 7 words: "We shouldn't have gone to the lake." I knew what it was immediately. I knew what it meant. The yearbook disappeared for 2 weeks before an anonymous source leaked its existence to the Gazette. By then, someone had attempted to destroy it, soaking it in bleach to erase the handwriting. But they'd underestimated both modern forensic technology and the determination of one person to finally uncover the truth. I always knew they were lying. I just never had proof until now. The proof came in the form of what the bleach couldn't erase, what was only visible under ultraviolet light. Between the printed messages and photos, invisible ink revealed coordinates, dates, initials, a countdown, and most disturbing of all, a message written in 3 different handwritings. We didn't mean to wake it. There was a second invitation. I found it in my locker the week before prom. Different paper than the official one. Heavier, almost like cardstock. This unauthorized invitation directed students to an after-party at Blackwater Lake, following the dance. "Everyone welcome," printed in slightly smudged ink, as if it had been wet when sealed. I showed it to Mrs. Dean. She took it from me, said it wasn't school approved, told me to forget about it. I collected 17 of those invitations, brought them straight to Principal Hargrove. He told me to destroy them, that they were probably just a senior prank. But forensic analysis of a single preserved invitation, found tucked into Rebecca's yearbook as a bookmark, reveals something far more sinister. The paper contains trace amounts of algae spores consistent with Blackwater Lake's unique ecosystem. The ink contains an unusual chemical compound that would later be identified in equipment at the abandoned water treatment facility adjacent to the lake. The invitation wasn't just unauthorized. It originated from the lake itself. It's like the town had an immune response to anything connecting the disappearance to Blackwater Lake. Communities often develop collective denial mechanisms around traumatic events, but Maple Hollow's response was extraordinarily coordinated. The question isn't just who printed those invitations, but why the town worked so hard to pretend they never existed. My equipment reset itself. When the power returned, my cassette deck was playing a song I didn't have in my collection. The audio is described as distorted, like a recording of waves crashing, overlaid, with a voice repeating a single phrase over and over. "Return to the water." Not shouting, just persistent, like a command. The song played for exactly 12 seconds before being stopped, and the planned playlist restarted. When checked later, the cassette in the deck appeared blank. Just a standard TDK-90 that had been used to record the dance. I told Sheriff Mercer about it the next day. He took the tape, said they'd analyze it. I never heard anything else about it. The tape doesn't appear in any evidence logs. Some things were better left uninvestigated. You have to understand what this town was like then. Tourism was our lifeblood. 7 missing kids was bad enough. We couldn't have rumors about what? About that place. The lake. What it does to people. When technology mirrors emotion, fear, grief, or silence, it's rarely coincidence. It's a warning being transmitted through whatever channel is available. Maple Hollow wasn't listening. The only physical evidence recovered the morning after was a single Polaroid photograph found inside the torn corsage box in the parking lot. The image shows 6 of the missing students posed near what appears to be the edge of Blackwater Lake, smiling in their formal wear. Jeremy Whitfield is noticeably absent, presumably taking the picture. Digital enhancement techniques unavailable in 1987 now reveal what appears to be an 8th figure standing behind the group. A shadowy form reflected in the lake's surface, but absent from the shore where the students posed. There's someone else there. The reflection doesn't match the actual scene captured in the photograph. According to analysis, the photo was taken at approximately 11:12 p.m., 25 minutes after the power outage and roughly 45 minutes before the dance officially ended. This creates a critical timeline. The students left the gymnasium during or immediately after the blackout, traveled 2 miles to Blackwater Lake, and took this photograph, all within half an hour. That's not possible on foot. They must have had transportation, then returned to leave their cars in the parking lot. Or someone drove them. That's Mr. Chambers, referring to Alexander Chambers, a substitute teacher who disappeared from Maple Hollow 3 months before prom night. His case was attributed to job abandonment. He simply didn't show up for work one day. His apartment left intact, but emptied of personal effects. Pictures capture more than faces. They immortalize intent. When something extra appears, it's often time itself trying to preserve what our eyes miss in the moment. There was a maintenance tunnel built in the 1940s when the school was constructed. It connected to the old summer camp facilities before they shut down in '63. The tunnel's existence was effectively erased from public knowledge after a drowning incident at Blackwater Lake's summer camp led to its closure. The passageway, originally designed for shared utilities between the properties, was sealed with concrete at the school end and masked by renovations. The seniors had a tradition. Every class found out about it from the one before. You weren't supposed to talk about it openly, but everyone knew the tunnel was how you got to the lake without being caught after curfew. The tunnel was never properly sealed. They poured concrete at the entrance, but didn't address the structural issues. Essentially, they built a plug that was bound to fail eventually. The spring of 1987 saw record rainfall in Maple Hollow. Water table records show Blackwater Lake rose nearly 3 feet above normal levels by early June. The pressure would have been immense. Any weakness in that concrete seal would have grown worse over time. 3 weeks after the disappearance, the school board approved emergency funds for structural repairs to the gymnasium floor. Construction took place throughout that summer, and the area was completely renovated before classes resumed in September. No documentation exists detailing exactly what work was performed. Every town has hidden architecture, literal or emotional. When you find a door that no one admits exists, that's precisely where the truth hides. Under ultraviolet light, the yearbook reveals far more than a single desperate message about the lake. Between class photos and signed messages appear coordinates, fragments of what seems to be a map, and cryptic phrases written in at least 3 distinct handwritings confirmed through forensic analysis to match samples from Jeremy Whitfield, Ann Carter, and Thomas Fletcher. The most chilling discovery is a countdown sequence beginning on page 87. 12 minutes, 9 minutes, 6 minutes, 3 minutes, it's coming. The final page shows a message written in overlapping scripts. We didn't mean to wake it. This wasn't an impulsive decision to leave the dance. These writings show premeditation, awareness of danger, and a countdown to some expected event. These students knew they were headed towards something potentially harmful, yet proceeded anyway. When evidence doesn't fit your timeline, it means your timeline is wrong. The messages in the yearbook force us to reconsider the entire sequence of events. The students didn't vanish without warning. They left breadcrumbs explaining exactly what they were doing. No one wanted to read them. We knew they went to the lake. We found footprints on the shore matching their shoe sizes. We found a torn piece of Ann Carter's dress, caught on a branch near the water's edge. Because Sheriff Davis ordered us not to include it, said it would panic the town, destroy property values, said those kids probably just ran off together. They'd turn up eventually. I found it washed up on the shore about a week after they disappeared. The water damaged most of the pages, but you can still make out parts. The journal belonged to Melissa Harmon, one of the missing students. Though mostly illegible, certain passages remain clear enough to read. Mr. C showed us the way beneath, says it's been there since before the town existed. T thinks it's just a senior prank, but J knows better. We all signed the pact. No turning back now. Meeting at 10:30 tonight. When the lights go out, that's our signal. The final entry, dated June 5th, 1987. It's not a legend. It's real. God help us. It's real. I was a coward. I should have come forward. Consequences be damned. Maybe the truth would have saved someone else. Someone else? You mean there were others? Every 12 years, like clockwork. June 1951. 4 teenagers vanished during an end-of-year bonfire at Blackwater Lake. Their disappearance attributed to swimming accidents, though no bodies were ever recovered. June 1963, the drowning death of summer camp counselor Alexander Hayes led to the closure of Camp Blackwater. Hayes's body was recovered, but 3 campers reported missing the same night were never found. June 1975. 2 college students researching local folklore disappeared while camping near the lake. Their equipment was found abandoned, including a tape recorder containing only static and what investigators described as unintelligible voices. June 1987. 7 St. Helena High students vanished after prom night. June 1999. A family of 4 disappeared while boating on Blackwater Lake. Their empty vessel was discovered drifting near the center, the motor still running. June 2011. 2 environmental researchers studying algae blooms in the lake were reported missing after failing to check in with their university. Their research materials were found scattered along the shore, including a journal with a single final entry, "The water is rising." 12-year cycles are significant in hydrological studies. Many lakes operate on cyclical patterns influenced by long-term weather trends, underground spring activity, or even seismic factors. It's like the town has an institutional memory disorder, a collective agreement to forget specific traumatic events, particularly those connected to the lake. It's just a lake. Every town has urban legends. Kids tell ghost stories. Nothing more than that. It was like the earth just swallowed itself. One minute we were looking at a pool of standing water. The next, there was this opening. You could see the old concrete seal had completely failed. The tunnel doesn't just lead to the lake. It branches into a much older system of passages. These weren't built in the 1940s. The stone construction suggests early 20th century, maybe older. The footage shows narrow corridors lined with decaying brick, opening into a larger chamber approximately halfway between the school and the lake. Inside this chamber, they found evidence that someone had been there relatively recently: modern flashlight batteries, food wrappers dated 1987, and most significantly, a wall covered in names and dates. 7 names from 1987, 4 names from 1975, 3 names from 1963, and others going back decades. It's a record of everyone who disappeared. Below the names, a single phrase was carved into the stone: "The lake sees all." If someone was in this chamber during the power outage and they created a sound, music, voices, anything, it could potentially have been heard through the school's ventilation system, especially if the power failure affected the normal ambient noise that would mask it. Every senior class had stories about the tunnel and the lake. Most of us ignored them, but there were always a few who took it seriously, who believed the legends. The legend centers around Blackwater Lake as a place of power, a doorway between worlds that would open every 12 years during the summer solstice. Those who approached it with the right offerings during this window could allegedly glimpse their futures, communicate with the dead, or even alter their fate. The ritual required specific elements: 7 participants wearing identical tokens, entry through the underground passage during a momentary darkness, and a sacrifice of what matters most at the water's edge. It wasn't supposed to be dangerous, just a harmless tradition. Leave something personal in the lake. Make a wish for your future. That's what I heard anyway. Chambers was obsessed with local history. He spent hours in the archives researching Blackwater Lake. I thought it was just academic interest. The pieces align into a disturbing picture. Chambers discovered something about Blackwater Lake's 12-year cycle and recruited vulnerable students to participate in what he believed was a significant ritual. His disappearance 3 months before prom wasn't abandonment. It was preparation. It's a calendar, similar to structures found throughout ancient America, designed to track solstices, equinoxes, and longer astronomical cycles. The most significant feature of the stone circle was a central pool that, when filled with water, would reflect the sky perfectly, creating what is described as a mirror between worlds. Whoever built this understood water management at an advanced level. They created a system that would periodically activate the central pool during specific astronomical alignments, including one that occurs every 12 years during the summer solstice. It wasn't considered human sacrifice in their theology. They believed these individuals were chosen, that they would transcend physical existence and continue to watch over the community from the other side. Every 12 years, Maple Hollow experiences an economic boom. Property values increase, tourism spikes, businesses report record profits. It's measurable, consistent, and has no obvious explanation in standard economic models. It's not a conspiracy in the traditional sense. It's more like a collective adaptive response, a community that has learned that certain events, while tragic for individual families, somehow benefit the group as a whole. The message scrawled across its back cover, "We shouldn't have gone to the lake," wasn't written by one of the missing students at all. It belongs to Alexander Chambers. The substitute teacher didn't lead the students to their doom as initially suspected. He tried to warn them, to break a cycle he had discovered through his research. They went to the lake not as unwitting victims, but as would-be saviors, attempting to break the cycle by confronting whatever waited beneath the surface. They understood the risk. They knew they might not return, but they believed that without intervention, the pattern would continue indefinitely, claiming new victims every 12 years. For the first time, the names of all those who disappeared are read aloud. Not just the 7 from 1987, but every recorded victim back to the town's founding. The list takes 27 minutes to complete. People begin to speak, hesitantly at first, then with increasing urgency. Stories hidden for generations emerge. Parents describe the subtle pressures they face to stop asking questions. Officials admit to evidence destroyed, investigations curtailed, witnesses silenced. The ritual of forgetting ends. The ritual of remembrance begins. The thing about water is that it has perfect memory. It holds the shape of everything it touches. Maple Hollow stopped sacrificing its children, but that doesn't mean the hunger goes away. It just means we have to find different ways to feed it. Now the town satisfies the lake with truth instead of bodies. Every June, they read the names aloud. They acknowledge the pain. They remember. The question left now isn't what happened to them, but how many of us are still pretending we don't know. If you've ever ignored the unease in your hometown, or if you've ever wondered what your school yearbook doesn't say, this story is your warning. Pay attention to what's missing. Pay attention to what repeats, because sometimes the scariest ghosts aren't the ones haunting us. They're the ones we create through silence.